good morning or good afternoon or good evening. I wanted to welcome you to the closing ceremony of this 13 Hamlyn Symposium on Medical Robotics. I'm very grateful for those who've made the time to join us from around the world, and also to see so many of you joining us at the closing ceremony. I think we all know last year, sadly, due to COVID, we cancelled the Hamlyn Symposium, but with the ongoing pandemic, we decided to host it this year, but in a very different format. And we hosted the proceedings online, which kicked off back in April, and you remember the opening ceremony there. And we had a very different format, but to be honest, I think many have found it quite engaging. And I think the number of people who've joined us have dramatically increased as well. It's been a packed program, featured a series of interactive events under the theme. Brief moment to focus on the key highlights since April. We all have had the privilege of listening to 15 keynote talks by world leaders in their field, many of whom are long-lasting friends of the Hamlyn Symposium, including Professor Chu, Leo Jacques, Rick Satava, Kevin Cleary, and Peter Fisher, amongst many of our distinguished speakers. I'm personally very grateful to the time and the commitment they have made to this symposium. We've also hosted about 13 Royal College of Surgeons CPD accredited workshops, thanks to the Hamlyn theme, each receiving over nearly 100 registrations, covering topics ranging from three-hand surgery, autonomous intraluminal navigation, robot-assisted endoscopy, and also micro and nano medical robots. We also established our Hamlyn Symposium YouTube channel, which hosted recordings from all the feature talks and the workshops, which are all freely accessible, by the way, and we hope we can continue to grow and use this as a valuable resource of the latest cutting-edge science and research for the wider medical robotics community. Other highlights included the surgical robot and medical robotics for contagious disease challenges, which has really become a big hit during the pandemic, attracted many international entries, and for which the winners will be announced later this afternoon, alongside further winners from our virtual poster competition. This year, we have also been delighted to continue our association with IEEE Transactions of Medical Robotics and Bionics journal, where we issued a call for papers and selected 25 high-quality submissions under the theme From Bench to Bedside, and that will feature in the third special edition to be published in November of this year. There are further details. Just visit the symposium website. You will get access to where these publications will be. I'll also like to reiterate that the continued success of the Hamlyn Symposium has been made possible through the most generous philanthropic support from the Helen Hamlyn Trust, and also more specifically, the Lady Hamlyn personally, who's been actively involved, to be honest, including in some cases in the program and its content. So I'm very grateful to Lady Hamlyn and the trustees of the Helen Hamlyn Trust. So to kick off things off today, we're very fortunate to have some outstanding and distinguished guest speakers joining us for, again, what promises to be a thoroughly engaging session, and I would like to extend my personal thanks to them in advance. I'll also like to acknowledge all of those who have made contributions to the success of this year's program, including workshop organizers, challenge judges, symposium sponsors, obviously, and the organizing committee. And of course, my fellow co-director of the Hamlyn Center, Ferdinando, who's been brilliant in every way possible. And also to thank Marianne, who has been absolutely brilliant in really putting this whole program and managing some of us who are fairly disorganized academics, but she's been absolutely brilliant. And, you know, just to say, Hamlyn has some amazing staff, you know, from academic staff, from professors down to lecturers who've been brilliant, but also many of the supporting staff and the postdocs who put a huge amount of effort in supporting this venture. So let me hand over to Ferdinando to take us through today's proceedings, and again, to thank you. And I very much hope that you enjoyed this session, and more importantly, I hope that we will meet in person if we get over this dreaded pandemic in 2022. Thank you. Ferdinando, all yours.
Thank you very much, Ara. It has certainly been an unorthodox year for us all, but certainly thanks to an organizing team and a unique community that makes us very special, I think, in the world. We have made the most out of this unique set of challenges, producing what I believe is an online repository that will benefit our community for years to come. Now, with regards to the program, we will start with two luminaries in the field of surgical robotics who will share their views, the technological view first and the clinical view on the future of what is a fast-paced technology space. And we will then follow this with our award ceremony, where representative of our award panel will provide prizes for our three challenges, which are the challenges for the surgical robot challenge, the medical robotics for contagious diseases challenge, and of course our poster competition. And that is before I take the word again for a closing and bye-bye until next year. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first keynote, and his name is Stefan Weber, who's a friend and colleague from Switzerland. Now, Stefan is professor of image-guided therapy at RTORG Center for Biomedical Engineering at the University of Bern, and he's the founder and CEO of an incredibly successful surgical robotics company called Cassination AG, which specializes in robotic-assisted cochlear implantation. After an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering and automation from the University of Ilmenau, and a PhD in augmented reality application in medicine and Humboldt University in Berlin, Stefan secured a Fulbright scholarship at the robotics lab of the University of Southern California in Los Angeles before returning to Bern as an academic and subsequently pursuing his entrepreneurial ambitions in Cassination, which is a leading firm in image-guided, minimally invasive interventional therapies. Now they have a set of technologies, which I think Stefan will talk about. The first is for solid tumor treatment with their Cas1 IR product. And the second is a technology called Hero related to cochlear implantation. Both of these obviously stem from Stefan's longstanding research track record at the University of Bern, which have given him, which have given his firm a unique competitive advantage. Professor Weber is the author and inventor of over 160 scientific publications and patents. He's the president of the German Society for Robot and Computer-Aided Surgery and a member of the IEEE. And today he will share with us his keynote entitled Robotic Cochlear Surgery Towards the Realm of Certainty, which I'm very much looking forward to. So Stefan, if you could share your screen, I very much look forward to your talk.
Ferdinando.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Professor Darzi, dear Ferdinando, dear organizing team, dear audience, thank you for having me with you today. I would much rather be in London today, but we all know it's not possible, or it's almost impossible to do so at this moment. I'm looking forward to meet people again in the future in person, because this stimulates discussions much better than being away in the office in Switzerland, although the weather is nice today and it's splendid. And I'm happy to be here once again. I looked at the past decade. I've been to Hamlyn many, many times. We presented at Hamlyn in the early days of our robotic cochlear work. We have been involved in the robotics competition, I think twice. And also 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I think I was there to talk about our lessons learned on doing the translation from the early research work all the way into commercial space. So as of today, I'm happy to be here, and I would like to share with you our journey of robotic cochlear implantation and how we think we can go towards the realm of certainty in cochlear implantation. I'm doing this talk on behalf of the university and on behalf of Cassination, of which I'm the scientific founder. I'm leading the company since 2 years, and I have a part-time post at the University of Bern at this moment. If you look at different parts of the body, you see, and we all know that the vertebra, the spine, the human knee, and in contrast to many robotic applications, we look at something rather small, the human cochlea. This is a picture that roughly replicates the ratio in size between the vertebra, the knee, and the cochlea. And you already see that size and scale is something that, you know, we make things different here. If we zoom into the cochlea a little bit more, we see the cochlea itself. Some of you might be familiar with the structure. The cochlea is the hearing organ. It's this snail-like structure here that has different compartments inside, and one opening called the round window, covered by a membrane. And typically in cochlear implantation, an axis is created through the skull towards this hole here, towards the cochlea, towards the round window. And then an electrode is inserted into the cochlea along the first 1.5 or 2 turns all the way to up here. And the electrode will then send electric stimuli towards the hearing nerve, creating a hearing sensation in the patient's brain. From a clinical perspective, it looks like this. This is the implant itself. There's a receiver, microphone, and a speech processor on the outside. The signals are transmitted through a little bit of a clip that sits on the skin of the patient, through the skin into the implant, and then electric stimuli are sent through this electrode through the mastoid bone, the bone behind the ear, through the middle ear cavity, all the way into this snail-like structure, the cochlea, and here's the round window. Today, surgeons do this procedure manually by creating an opening into the bone, manually by milling with a handheld tool. And once they have gained access into the middle ear cavity, they open manually the cochlea, and then manually take their fingers and push, pull, move the electrode into the cochlea. The challenge is that inside the cochlea, we have hair cells, and there are always some hair cells that are inside the cochlea that are still intact. And ideally, we want to not destroy any hair cells that might be still intact in the patient. But this is a rather difficult attempt. And this is why we believe robotic technology can assist us in delivering better implant results in cochlear implantation. For us, the concept is to take computer-based planning, in patient individual planning based on CT data as a precondition to the treatment, and conduct the procedure solely with a robotic platform because of the limitations of human perception and human haptic skill set. And we believe that, you know, by deploying robotic technology, we can dial out errors that typically come from human performance, you know, lack of resolution, lack of tremor, and lack of other types of limitations. And that we believe also that there's a whole new level of standardization that is reachable through robotic task autonomy that we can do. And to give you upfront the picture of what we do in the OR, we see here, this is a robotic procedure, but in contrast to many other types of robotic procedures, this is the robot, the device that works. And this is the picture here where the machine, I don't even know if it mills or drills, but it does something on the patient. And because what it does on the patient is so delicate, the surgeon has to remove his or her hands, take it out of the process, and effectively just monitors the process on a screen. The screen is in the background of this picture, but the doctor here just looks at the screen, monitors the device, checks some numbers basically, and confirms by a foot pedal that the robot can succeed. As you can imagine, we need to drill, and I will tell about this in a second. We drill with submillimetric accuracy, effective submillimetric accuracy. As you can imagine, if someone would put the hand onto this robot, the robot would deflect already by 1 or 2 tenths of a millimeter. So really, this is hands-off work. This is truly a robotic procedure. To begin with, the technology has gone through kind of a technological evolution. Some 10 years ago, we started this work. This was an early prototype, an early demonstrator of the system, from which we took off and solved a number of significant research and technological challenges. 6 years later, we had an investigational device approval provided by the Swiss authorities, together with an approved clinical trial protocol that allowed us to go into the OR. In Switzerland, with my colleague Marco Cavazaccio, we conducted the first robotic procedure here with this device. It looks a little bit like Apollo 13, maybe, with this cables and so on. But this was a device that was safe and effective to be used on patients for the first time. A drill device here that would create the drilling, the robotic element, and a number of components and auxiliary safety devices that would help us to conduct a safe procedure. And we did that. We started the trial, we ended the trial. In the meantime, we also started commercial development. And as of last year, end of last year, we successfully secured CE marking, so medical device approval, for a succession of this technology, which we call Hero, which is a robot system again that sits on the side of the patient, attached to the patient to the OR table, with a tracking system here that tracks objects in space with 50 micron precision. The automatic drill bit here, integrated electromyography system, a nice simple touchscreen that tells the user what to do, and the surgeon just is here in this picture to show the comparison. And in our research work, we have developed and implemented a treatment model, effectively consisting of 4 major steps: a planning step, and then the step of creating an access from the surface of the skull towards the middle ear cavity. The third step is then the actual opening of the cochlea to provide access for the implant, and the fourth step effectively being the electrode array insertion step, bringing the electrode into the cochlea itself. And I will walk you through this process in the next few minutes. The first step of planning is the geometric planning of the trajectory, but most importantly, it is actually the identification of the most suitable cochlear implant electrode. As we see that here, the software that we had built and is now also commercially available is this idea that with a few clicks, any user can bring up the cochlea in 3D with nice resolution, can place and play around and select the most suitable cochlear implant electrode, look at where the electrode contacts end up alongside the cochlear duct, which frequency appear, and using some audiological data, the software would also allow to see whether or not the electrode, a given length of the electrode, would be sufficient to cover the damaged areas in the frequency space in the cochlea. And with this, the patient, the surgeon can plan the most optimal implant choice for the patient, for a given patient. And once this is done, the geometric planning takes place. In the first step for the middle ear axis, again, there is a process model behind. The intention is to drill a 1.8 millimeter tunnel from the skull surface towards the correct point, aiming at the round window in the cochlea. The drill tunnel is 1.8 millimeters, and the most critical thing here is that as the system drills through the skull, it needs to pass a section called the facial recess, which is the area between the facial nerve responsible for all the muscles in the face and the taste nerve. And the area between here, the distance between these two nerves on average is only 2.5 millimeters. And you can make simple math, 2.5 minus 1.8 divided by 2. So typically we have 0.4 millimeters of space between the drill hole here and the nerve here. And effectively, to have any problem with the drill bit at the facial nerve, is really a disaster for us. So at any cost, this must be avoided. So in the process, as we drill through the bone, through the skull, and we get closer to the level of the facial nerve, the surgeon can decide whether or not he or she wants to carry out an additional imaging step to confirm whether or not the existing trajectory is in alignment with the planned trajectory. And then further on, as the robot drills through this very narrow passage through the two nerves in frequent intervals, the robot stops and carries out some electromyography measurement by sending some stimulus impulses into the bone tissue and some attached electrodes on the outside of the muscles in the face. The system can determine whether or not the trajectory is good or too close to the facial nerve, and to date, it's always good. So the system can confirm that the trajectory is good, is in the right direction, and it can continue to drill. So it's kind of a radar system looking at the near vicinity of the drill hole next to the nerves, and with this we create some kind of radar vision for the surgeon, such that the surgeon know, okay, it's good, we can continue, because by visual inspection, looking at the robot device, no one can tell anymore whether or not this robot is exactly aligned. Therefore, we must have some redundant safety mechanisms in place to confirm that the robot is in the right trajectory. Another issue we had to solve, and this was also something we spoke at Hamlyn some years back, typical bone drilling is subject to heat exposure in the near vicinity, in the tissue around the drill or mill bit. We see here a typical standard off-the-shelf drill bit deployed with our robot, and looking at some temperature development or heat development in cortical bone samples. We see that here the temperature easily exceeds 55 degrees Celsius, which is effectively cell death. So we also spent a significant amount of time. It was basically a full PhD project to look at the way to create some cold mechanical drilling with the specific design of a drill bit that transforms the mechanical energy introduced by the drill bit mostly into a removal of tissue rather than into the creation of thermal energy. And the big picture here, you see that with the drill system that we are now deploying in our technology, we have solved that problem, and the drill temperature does not elevate any dangerous levels altogether. The third step, inner ear access, is very interesting because it's taking place at a micro scale. Again, I would like to remind you on the cochlea, the picture here, we need to go in here, and we already have planned a trajectory that is tangential to the initial turn of the cochlea, such that when the electrode enters the cochlea, it doesn't wiggle too much and has to make significant turns. It comes in straight and it travels into the basal turn immediately. And moving this into an image space, we would see here the structure again, the cochlea. And if we zoom into this area here, we see the round window opening here, the round window membrane in this pinkish color. There are some landmarks like the lateral wall, the medial wall of the bony overhang, which must be removed by the robotic drilling process. This is something you cannot see anymore as a surgeon. And at the same time, the robot must make sure that the membrane remains intact, although sufficient opening must be created such that the electrode, which is 0.8 millimeters in diameter, can travel through the opening that has been created. Yeah, and this is what the software tool can also plan here in a nutshell. Again, the trajectory you see in 3D and in 2D representations with the scalar tympani opening and the membrane you might see here, and so on. It's quite nifty, and it's planned on site as the patient is under anesthesia. This is planned and move forward then towards the machine. This is a quick video to show you after the robot has drilled the hole into the middle ear cavity and then opened the cavity towards the cochlea, we can inspect that with a tiny little endoscope with not very good image properties, 1.2 millimeters of an endoscope. We go through the tunnel, and we see here in the end this opening in the bony structures of the cochlea outside. We see here the intact membrane that in the next step the surgeon would then open and insert the electrode. The last step, which in the model remains to be robotic electrode insertion, we still conduct at this moment manually. There's work ongoing in the background to look at this from a mechatronic robotic point of view, which will come in the future. Before we do so, we must also consider an appropriate way to store the excessive implant lead. We see here a picture of the implant. This is the receiver, then the electrode lead that travels through the hole all the way into the cochlea. In the manual days, the opening here that was created in the surgery was quite large, and the excessive lead of the electrode can be placed in that cavity. But today, there's no such cavity anymore, so the machine can also mill a certain track here on the surface of the skull. There is a short little video here in the background from a preclinical experiment in double speed, basically, on 20 times speed. We see how the robot does this movement. This is a normal speed movement. The milling process of the bed milling takes 2 to 3 minutes, and it creates all these nice interfaces from the channel here into the cochlea, into the tunnel hole, and there's also this possibility to connect it to the implant bed. Then afterwards, and you see here this channel, and then late in the end of the video, we see here how we can create a super nice press fit that exactly takes the electrode lead that's excessive outside into this groove and keeps it there, protects it nicely against some potential external shocks that might appear, especially in children. So a very certain, very defined and standardized process that can be described with a number of variables. And then in the end, there's this actual electrode insertion process into the cochlea. And for this, I have this low resolution video here. Again, it's a very tiny space, and the endoscopes we can deploy there are very small. This is this endoscope that looks at the round window. You might see that here, or I hope you see it here. This is a device called insertion tube, a little metal structure that we put through the drill hole to guide the electrode exactly towards this round window position. And when I start the video, you will see how the electrode comes out of this hole and then travels into the cochlea in a very smooth manner, because it's coming in the right direction, in the right angle. There's no obstacles, no deflection of the electrode in. It's quite fast here, but we aim to have a robotic mechanism in place soon that allows the controlled insertion, with a dedicated and super reproducible speed. Speeds that can be slow as 20, 50 microns per second, and so on, to really protect all the structures within the inner ear. And the last step of the procedure really is the removal of this insertion tube that you see here. Take it out with a little hook, and then once it's done, there's a little implant check taking place by an engineer to confirm that the implant itself is working properly, and then the surgery is called to an end, and the patient will wake up, and then some weeks post-op, the implant is actually turned on and then tuned to the needs of the patient. This is a picture of one of our patients that we have done in the past, to illustrate also the difference from a morphological point of view. This patient had a pre-existing implant on the right side here. This is the opening that's typically created in a surgery. And here we see our tunnel hole with this electrode going straight and nicely aligned into the cochlea. I think after 10 years, we have moved the whole story from really a concept to a commercial project. The first batch of systems is out now. It's under clinical introduction at this moment in Europe. We're also looking at different places further beyond at the moment. Our work remains to continue to look at the story of a 1-hour procedure. We are actively working at this moment at the implementation of robotic electrode insertion to really challenge the way we insert these tiny electrodes in this super critical and super tiny anatomical structures called the Cochlear. There is some work on modularization to take off different components in different application scenarios, on the use of image guidance. Submicron tracking accuracy at the lateral skull base is a huge topic that no one has touched at this moment. And of course, you can imagine in the ear, there are many other things such as drug delivery and other types of implants that we are looking at and that we are interested. So both from a research perspective as also from a commercial translation perspective, there's a lot more to do, and I'm very excited to be part of this game. I would like to thank MED-EL, who has been with us since 10 years in this project. MED-EL is the leading European manufacturer of cochlear implants, calcination, of course. And I would like to thank my alma mater, University of Bern. Thank you very much.
Stefan, wonderful. Thank you very much. We have a few minutes for questions. So if you would like to pose your question to Stefan, please use the Q&A tab, and I will then read it for Stefan to reply. And we have one already, and it basically asks, the groove that you create to house the additional electrode, is the idea that then that groove gets remarginated, or so does it grow again? And that basically then means the electrode is locked inside the bone, or does it remain open?
We were just talking about the groove on the surface of the skull.
Correct. Correct.
There's some tissue growth that will kind of fixate the electrode in that groove. Yes, that's what we expect, and that's what we want. I don't see that it will grow back with bone. It's not going to happen.
Understood. I have a slightly higher level question, which is the complexity of bringing a technology like this to market. So have you CE-marked the product now? So is it now a product and
yes.
it is in use in hospital?
Mm-hmm.
And how taxing was it? And did you have to go through the MDR to get it through, or were you able to get it through with the previous regulatory framework, which is sort of
Okay. The approval process started, I would say, more than 3 years ago. It commenced or finished a year ago, plus minus, and it's registered as a class 2 device. We don't see that there's much more in contrast between NDD and MDR at this device class. What we have done together with our notified body is to look into these aspects of functional safety and robotic autonomy that we are really doing here on a medical device level. These were the critical elements to us, because there's nothing really in state of the art there. Most robot systems to date, or almost all, have been, our assistive devices where a machine provides teaching, and then the user always is responsible for carrying out the task. Unlike us, unlike the system, this was the difficult bit, and we succeeded there. It was quite interesting, and I would also say stimulating, and we made it. And if anyone is interested in discussing what needs to be done there, I'm always happy to share our experience there. It's been very nice, and yeah, it's good.
And Stefan, harder business or harder academia for you? Has it been more challenging and harder to put your entrepreneurial hat on and your CEO role, or was it harder to be an academic or a leading academic in a leading university?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that any one thing is harder. I would say, at the age of 45, to change career is basically you have to come out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And we will see if enough people think what we do now is we call successful. But for me, I always say I do the same thing. Yeah, we started with Cochlear, robotic cochlear implementations 10 years ago, and I still do what I'm fascinated there. Of course, we have other projects as well, and there's a much bigger team now. But for me, I continue the story. Yeah, it's on different levels, but it's the same story, and this is what's fascinating to me.
Yeah. To finish off, we've got Brian Davis, father of medical robotics in this country, and he says, "It's good to see you and looking so well. Thank you for the great talk. If a surgeon performs a task and there is a problem, it is accepted that the surgery is risky. It's a risky process. With this degree of autonomy, how do you deal with any such problem? So when the robot packs up."
Mm-hmm. From a legal point of view and from an ethical point of view, this discussion is about the transfer of responsibility. In an assistive device, basically the responsibility always rests with the surgeon to make those decisions. To date, yes, we have some critical steps in the system where we say the robot actually is responsible to do this task right. And yes, we as a company gratefully acknowledge that we carry this responsibility. Of course, we are backed up by insurance companies, which we hope they will never have to come out. But yes, ultimately, if we really want to exploit the value of robotic work, then we must anticipate more to say, yes, there will be a transfer of responsibility away from a surgeon towards a machine. And because that machine cannot be held responsible, it must be the manufacturer behind it. This will be the company, the commercial entity that is the entity that introduces the medical device into the market. And yes, it's something that you need to take care of from a legal point of view, liability, insurance, and so on. And it's possible to do. Yeah, it's absolutely possible. And the mechanisms for this in a commercial environment are available.
Stefan, thank you very much. Now, there are many more questions to you, Stefan, and you obviously enlightened everybody's imagination. But in the interest of time, I think we should move on to our second keynote speaker. I will, though, promise that in one way or another, we will get the answers to those who have asked the questions. So if Stefan has a chance to reply to these questions offline using the chat, if not, we will get the questions from Stefan and share it with the audience. And thank you very much, Stefan, for the absolutely wonderful technological talk, which will be followed by our second keynote, which instead focuses on the clinical side of our field. I'm absolutely honored to introduce Professor Jacques Marescaux. So Jacques is professor of surgery and the founding president of the Research Institute for Digestive Cancer within the grounds of the University Hospital in Strasbourg, and founder and member of the board of directors of the Hospital University Institute of Strasbourg, a center of excellence in image-guided minimally invasive surgery and technology transfer. In addition, Professor Marescaux founded the European Institute of Telesurgery, or EAITS, as a training facility that has promoted the know-how and groundbreaking work of EarCAD. And since its creation in 1994, EAITS has become one of the international points of reference, having trained over 40,000 surgeons from 125 countries. In 2001, Professor Marescaux performed the first transcontinental laparoscopic operation from New York on a patient in Strasbourg, which is now known as the Leinberg operation. And importantly, on the 2nd of April 2007, he became the very first surgeon in the world to carry out a surgical operation without leaving a scar, thus giving birth to the field of natural orifice transluminal endoscopic surgery, or NOTES, which remains one of the most exciting and complex approaches in minimally invasive surgery today. Professor Marescaux and his team have published over 4,000 papers and in some of the top leading journals in medicine, including Nature, New England Journal of Medicine, and Annals of Surgery. He has received honorary titles from many universities and holds honorary fellowships at the Royal College of Surgeons and the Japanese Society of Endoscopic Surgery. He sits on numerous editorial boards, not surprisingly, and was made Officer of the French National Order of Merit in 2007 and Commander of the French National Order of the Legion of Honor in 2019. Today, I am delighted to introduce his keynote, which is entitled Imaging, Robotics, and Artificial Intelligence, the Next Steps in Minimally Invasive Surgery, which will shed light on the future of medicine in a field that is most important to our community. Jacques, over to you, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Professor Rodriguez. Thank you very much, Fernando. My role today, as you asked, is to speak about what we have done the last 27 years concerning robotics and all the different developments of robotics. Always, when I start a lecture, I always say that it was not our ideas at the beginning, but just since the beginning, I say that we just put into practice all the visionary ideas of Rick Satava. I remember always the first time I met Rick Satava, it was a lecture in Germany in 1991. And you imagine that in 1991, Rick Satava explained the evolution of surgery, and he explained how important will be robotics. It didn't exist at this period, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, all this integration between image and robotics. And so after that, we have created an institute in Strasbourg, which is IRCAD, you spoke about, totally dedicated to education and research in the new technology, especially robotics. So today, I've just to summarize what we call augmented robotic surgery, especially in digestive surgery, but also urology, gynecology, etc. When you speak and when you discuss with a surgeon, asking how you can imagine to improve your art, to improve your performance in the procedure, the first answer is always the same. I need to see more than what I can see normally with my eyes. And especially when I operate something like kidney or liver, I want to see in transparency. And that's the first challenge. The second one is always I want to improve my hands. That's just the robotics, but we will just discuss a little about a new generation of robot for flexible endoscopy. And finally, we know that the surgeon wants to improve his strategy before the operation, during the operation, and after the operation. And that is the role of artificial intelligence, also totally integrated in the next generation of robot. So if we start to speak about the vision, you all know what we can do today and what can be integrated in the robot. And that is a very easy image that all the surgeon can absolutely easily understand. And that is a development that we started at the beginning of IRCAD in 1994 to have some software to transform a 2D image of a CT scan in a 3D image. It's not a 3D CT scan image, which is a volume rendering, but it is a surfacic rendering. And that allows us to have any interactivity. So that is an example for neck surgery, especially for robotic thyroidectomy. You have other example, like for example, in pediatric surgery, this big hamartoma, you know, it's very difficult for the pediatric surgeon to understand the details of the anatomy. And when you have the possibility before and during the operation to navigate inside this virtual tumor, you see that it's very easy to discover the hepatic artery and the two main arteries going for the vascularization of this tumor. And so this operation has been performed in 45 minutes and not hours, which were planned before. Certainly one of the most important applications is liver surgery, especially robotic, and lung surgery, especially robotics too. For liver surgery, you see this image, for example, very difficult for the brain of the surgeon to understand the localization of this cholangiocarcinoma. And we know that the surgeon and all the team of surgeons thought it was on the right side, and though they plan to do a right hepatectomy. And when you use virtual simulation, you see immediately that it is not on the right side, but it is on the left side because we have not the median vein. So that is just an example, but it is so important. The second step before the real operation is how we can simulate with the own data of the patient the procedure we are going to perform the day before. Here, for example, different metastasis on the liver. For the left side, we propose a resection of the liver. The other one, we propose a radiofrequency ablation or cryoablation. And you see that it is totally interactive. That means we can take the needle, we can find the best way to introduce the needle and to be exactly in the center of the tumor. And you see, that is what I explained just before. It is interactive. It is not the same software that exists today in a CT scan. We can have a total interactivity with a virtual instrument. And finally, after the planning, after the simulation, you have what we call augmented reality, which is a fusion between the real image given by the camera and the virtual image. And you know, we work a lot on that since more than 20 years. It's long, it's difficult, we have a lot of challenge. We published the first series in 2004. And at this period, it was only possible to integrate retroperitoneal organs because you know that we have no movement due to the bracing or no modification of the volume due to the pneumoperitoneum. And the concept is simple. When you dissect, for example, the external part of the vena cava, immediately we have in real time the superimposition of this image. So that is a concept of augmented reality. Something very important to understand. Today, this image has to be integrated in the robot. And you know that we have created a spin-off 6 years ago whose name is Visible Patient. It was not so easy, but Visible Patient today, we have the exclusive license to Johnson & Johnson for laparoscopic surgery, robotic surgery, and it will be integrated in the new generation of Verb robot, which is going to be on the market certainly next year. But you know, because we want in the operating room a very quick reconstruction, we have done a lot of progress, especially during the COVID. And I have just an example to show, because you know that today lung surgery is more and more focused and performed with the robot. And you see that we need to have this 3D reconstruction. And look at the time, the duration of the reconstruction. In 2019, it was 4 hours semi-automatic. We work a lot during the COVID, and at the end of 2020, it was 9 minutes and totally fully automatic with 2 patents, one in United States and one in Europe. So we imagine that if it is 9 minutes today, in the next 5 years, it will be 5 minutes, 4 minutes, and suddenly one day, totally real-time reconstruction. And that is a goal we want to obtain. So how we integrate the image in the robot? You look like that. It is like a GPS. Here, for example, you have a surgery for a complex rectal cancer. You see that we have the 3D image, and when the surgeon is looking inside the master piece of Da Vinci system, you see that he can see on the upper part the normal view given by the camera, and on the under part, he has the 3D modeling. So it is not augmented reality, but it is like a GPS. You know exactly the different landmarks. And the next step we work a lot on is how we can integrate the concept of augmented reality to the robot. And that is not easy, but we have solved with the engineers a lot of challenge due to the bracing, due to the position of the patient. And every year we do a lot of progress. And you see here, for example, the concept is that when the surgeon is looking, for example, on the liver, you are going to see that he is able to see the normal view, but also the virtual view, which is integrated, and that has to be automatic and in real time. Just a word about robotic remote surgery. You spoke, Fernando, you spoke about the Lindbergh operation. I think it's important today to the two words. Yes, we have performed in 2001 the first long-distance remote surgery between New York and Strasbourg. And that was not a surgical challenge. That was a challenge of information technologies. And that has been a very, it was more than 7 years of work, especially with University of Mathematics of San Francisco, with, at this period, it was a computer motion robot Zeus, and it was done and published in high priority in Nature. And that is exactly 20 years ago. And it is very interesting to see that today you have a lot of Chinese team. They speak about what they are able to do for remote surgery with the 5G. And you see that with the 5G, last year, it was just preclinic application, never more than 3,000 kilometers with two ways and a latence of 264 milliseconds. And that 20 years ago, the young team, two young engineers of France Telecom, they were able to do this clinical approach, 14,000 kilometers and a latence of 155 milliseconds, when we know that we need to have less than 200 milliseconds to be able to do a remote surgery. Just one word also, we know that one of the very important parts of the revolution in surgery is that majority of tumors of alimentary tract for esophagus, stomach, colon and rectum will be operated more by endoluminal way with flexible endoscope than by laparoscopic way or robotic laparoscopic way. And we know that it was also, we work on that since more than 15 years. We have understood that the big difference between a surgeon and a gastroenterologist is that we need to have a triangulation concept, because to operate we need a triangulation concept. But we have seen also that it was so complex to be able to operate in the endoluminal approach, because it is difficult for spatial orientation, etc. You will see on the left a conventional equipment with an expert gastroenterologist coming from South Korea with more than 1,000 endoscopic submucosal dissection. And on the right, it is a surgeon without any experience of endoluminal ESD, but with a robot. And you see the big difference on the right with the robot. It is a real surgical dissection. I want to finish by augmented brain. Augmented brain, everybody speak about artificial intelligence and augmented brain. We just finished a project whose name is Condor Project, to imagine a control tower in the operating room, and that is due to artificial intelligence. It was possible to storage everything, the preoperative image, the external camera, laparoscopic camera, physiological signals given by the anesthesiologist, and all that are parameters very important during the follow-up of the patient until he is going to go back to work. We work also for different procedures. Today it is for cholecystectomy, hernia repair, bariatric surgery, endoluminal bariatric surgery, about how the machine is able to understand the different steps of an operation. And especially we have shown that it was today possible to have the definition of what we call the triangle of safety. That is a work done by Nicolas Padua in the EHU of Strasbourg, and that is very important for the next generation of robots, but also for education. But something important is that we speak about these new technologies, CT scan, reconstruction in 3D. It's, the cost of each reconstruction is more than $700. And something important is that I read just some months ago in a report by the World Health Organization that today 5 billion of the world population have no access to medical imaging. So, we speak about all these new technology, but you see, and that is the reason why we think that robotics and artificial intelligence have to take in account this kind of country. And we have developed a very interesting program about how we can imagine an ablation of tumor using a very simple ultrasonograph. And you see the first step is what you see, how artificial intelligence can do automatically the screening of little tumors of less than 2 centimeters for the liver, for the kidney. That is the first step. The second step is how we can also, by artificial intelligence, transform the 2D image in a 3D image, what we have seen just before using the medical image of the CT scan, but with an ultrasonogram. And so we can have an automatic positioning of the needle. And after that, you see, we follow the target and we can introduce. And finally, what we want to do, just to see, finally, on the right, is how we can imagine to have an automatic placement and introduction of the needle for this kind of ablation, because we know that today, for tumors of the liver of less than 2 centimeters, the results are exactly the same if we have an ablation or a surgical resection. I just want to finish to say, you imagine it's a lot of work. And we have imagined, because it was difficult to have a very strong and a big team of artificial intelligence in France, especially in Strasbourg. So you see that today we have a lot of different institutes in the world, and especially in Brazil and in Rwanda, in Africa, the center is going to open in some months. We have created also a strong team of artificial intelligence, especially in Rwanda, in Africa, because they have 2 famous institutions. One is a subsidiary of Carnegie and Mellon University, which is certainly one of the leaders in the world for computer science and for artificial intelligence. And the second one is AIMS, African Institute of Mathematical and Science. It's 1,000 candidates per year for only 80 place. And so now we have 20 engineers in Rwanda. We are going to have 40 at the end of 2022. And that is the reason why we imagine that we can go faster to develop the integration of artificial intelligence and robotics. Thank you very much for your invitation. It was an honor for me. And if you have any question, I'm ready to answer. Thank you.
Jacques, that was an absolutely astonishing presentation. Thank you very much for your contribution. I would like to remind the audience that if they would like to ask Jacques a question, please use the Q&A tab and write your question there, and I will read it aloud for Jacques to reply. And to start off, I had a question that you touched upon, because you said imaging rather important. And of course, we have to keep in mind that imaging is inaccessible, and even more inaccessible as we go sort of to developing countries. Now, I have my own, I suppose, pet area, which is interventional MR, because of course MRI does offer this incredible richness of data, but access to an interventional suite is very limited. Now, from where you sit, do you think interventional MR will become a bit more mainstream as the price and accessibility improve, or something will come to the table, like, for example, further improvements in ultrasound that will make this sort of cumbersome multi-million-pound investment in MRIs redundant? So somehow, how do we bridge that gap to make it more accessible but keep the quality?
Okay. Thank you for the question. It's complex to answer, but I have this experience. You know that I have created 10 years ago the Institute of Image Guide Surgery just in front of IRCAD. It was the most important investment of Siemens that I have never done in France. And we have what I call an ideal suite for hybrid surgery. Inside, we have the CT scan, we have the MRI, we have Pheno, which is a robotized CT scan, we have ultrasonography, etc. What we have seen after 10 years is that for interventional cardiology, that means to put valve, for neurosurgery, I think there is a place for this kind of very complex hybrid operating room. For digestive surgery, urology, what I call normal surgery, I think it's very difficult to imagine that. For the problem of cost, sure. For a problem of ergonomy. And it's very interesting that you have different ways today. Yesterday, I had a very interesting meeting with a young startup from Boston after 25 years in MIT. They are going to develop a total new technology of CT scan, totally smaller, low cost, low irradiation, decrease of size of the different piece of the CT scan, and totally ergonomic for an operating room. So that is a way. But even this way, you see on the other part that even ultrasonograph today in Europe, an ultrasonograph, a sophisticated one, Hitachi, Toshiba, Siemens, it is nearly $100,000. And you know that today you have some startup, one in France, they have a probe of ultrasonography smaller than that, Wi-Fi, and it is for $400. So what we try to do today is to teach the machine to understand and to do in parallel an automatic screening of the image with a sophisticated ultrasonograph, and the same with a machine, with a low-cost machine. And we are sure that the automatic screening will be possible with a probe of $400. And if we succeed that means that we can have a democratization of the image. And after that, robotics and connection with this kind of probe, we can imagine to have a part of percutaneous surgery, which is a very important part of the next step for surgery.
Fantastic. Great. Jacques, parting question for me, and it has to do with telesurgery. So you have been a luminary in telesurgery and, you know, the first to really sort of make it happen. Do you think that remains a humanitarian feat, so something that demonstrates the prowess of human ingenuity, but will remain restricted as a proof of concept? Or do you actually think that in a future not so distant, this could be a way you do surgery in areas which will be inaccessible for one reason or the other? So is there a bigger future for it?
Okay, so you know that when we have done that, it's, I think perhaps just because we like challenge. And even Rick Satava, my hero, he said 2 or 3 months before we succeed to do that, it will be impossible, never more than 500 miles in 20 years. And it was possible with 2 young engineers of France Telecom because they decreased this big problem of latency, time of latency. So we, after one shot, because we had the authorization of the ethical committee to do that on 1 patient only, after that the robot, a specific robot, it was the first time it was a robot with optic fiber, because all the robot at this period, it was cable. So we have done a new robot with computer motion. That was a lot of work and a lot of money for them. And after that, it was done for 45 patients by Meran-en-Vary in Canada, between Hamilton and the north of Canada. And after that, nothing. Why? Because to rent the technology we have taken, that means the transatlantic cables, the ATM technology, it was a rent of $1 million for 6 months. And you cannot do just one shot. So you imagine it was difficult to imagine a democratization of that. Today, when we see the 5G, which is nearly correct with the latency, what I have to say is that what we know today with a learning curve of a lot of new technology in minimal invasive surgery and robotic surgery, that will be not acceptable by any society. So if there is a possibility to join 2 teams just for during, you know, perhaps 15 minutes, half an hour, and that somebody can take the control during a difficult part of the operation, certainly I think one day it will be a diffusion of the technique due to the decrease of cost and the very easy access to the technology.
Fantastic. Well, some of the areas of innovations that keep us happy during these uncertain times. Jacques, thank you once again for taking the time to present to us. And in the interest of time, we'll now move on.
Thank you very much.
to the award side of this ceremony. And I will now introduce Rich Mahoney. He's VP of Research at Intuitive Surgical, and he represents the awarding panel for the Surgical Robot Challenge, which this year was as vibrant as ever. As everybody in our community knows, we have such a challenge and award every year, and this year was equally as taxing to award the right team for it. So without further ado, Rich, if you would like to share your screen and take over, I'm looking forward to your introductions. Thank you, Rich.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for this opportunity to be here today. So Marianne, I'm assuming you have a screen to share, is that correct? Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm the recently hired VP of Research at Intuitive Surgical. Although I've been in robotics for over 30 years now, I've been at Intuitive for just over 7 months now. And the one thing I can confirm for you is that there is the need for innovation is as strong as ever. And my participation here, as well as the participation of the other judges, has a lot to do with the relevance and meaningfulness of the research that all of you are conducting. And I think these awards are, it's important that we provide this kind of recognition, but at the same time, I'd really like to recognize the work of all of the entrants. And I think there's as I'm stating, there's still the field of surgical robotics is quite nascent. Intuitive has been here for 25 years, but the innovation is still required to grow the field. Less than 10% of surgeries worldwide that are conducted are done using robotic intervention. Although all of those don't need a robot, there's still a vast majority of those that could benefit from robotic tools and ultimately create better outcomes for patients. So there's a very strong humanitarian impact that we can all continue to make by moving the field of surgical robotics forward. So the other judges that are participated, I'd like to recognize and acknowledge Jeff Spence from CMR, as well as Tobias Reichel from KUKA. All three of us were really impressed with the quality of the entrance, and what I'd like to highlight is that our perspective, being from industry and the market, we're really looking at those solutions that we're tending more towards market readiness or meeting needs that we're seeing in the market. And I think because of that, there's a lot of consensus around the scoring that we had all put together. So without further ado, I'd like to announce the winners. And so under the design category, the winner for this year for the Surgical Robot Challenge is Smart Surge by the team at the University of the West of England, Bristol Robotics. And the presenter today will be Sanja Dagramatsi. We may have some connection issues there too. So Ramondo Ascione will also be supporting the presentation.
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you very much for this opportunity to present the project that we've been all working hard together for the last few years. So I'm going to talk about the Smart Search project, so this is the project that was conceived to develop smart wearable teleoperation technologies with particular emphasis on safety and enhanced vision. It has been funded by European Commission Horizon 2020 and with 10 partners from all over Europe. So our mission and the conception of the project was to improve minimally invasive surgeries and to consider this approach in open incision surgeries where minimally invasive approach has not been developed. The project has been developed in collaboration with surgeons from 3 different surgical specialists, from urology, orthopedic surgery, and cardiac surgery. here you can see the main components of the proposed system, and in the middle here, so here down on the right, you can see comparison of at the start of the project with the Vinci system. At the start of the project, we collected a summary of requirements analysis in these 3 surgical specialists from about 40 surgeons, and they can be classified in these 3 categories. So one was in forces used in surgery and haptic feedback, in safety and visualization, and dexterity and telecontrol. So our achievements can be attributed to safety improvements through, on one side, augmented reality toolkit and intraoperative 3D reconstruction, and Smart Search augmented reality graphic user interface with a number of different interactive functions, including active dynamic constraints, which were developed to prevent motion of the instrument in close vicinity of blood vessels. On the other hand, we have extended dexterity. So we developed in-house this wearable master, and we developed a new type of 3 surgical forceps with 6 degrees of freedom that was tested while in the lab and on ex vivo samples. We also tested the dexterity, extending dexterity in virtual reality that included both arm and hand dexterity. This was with Mr. Comparis in North Bristol Trust. And we developed the virtual reality system in Unity. So here it was much easier to test our concept on in a number of different scenarios. Our wearable master was also developed using machine learning for cardiac surgery. So with Professor Aschione, we ran a number of experiments on ex vivo person heart experiments to map the motion of the surgeon's hand with the Castroviejo instruments that is typically used in open incision cardiac surgery. I finally have to mention also our pioneering attempts in using machine learning to estimate grasping forces using Da Vinci Grasper. So thank you very much for your attention. And now finally, I would like to thank in the name of the whole Smart Search team in UK, Italy, Greece, and France and Cyprus for this fantastic achievement and award. So now the movie.
Okay, thank you and congratulations. Now I'd like to make the second winner announcement, and my understanding that this may be the first time that we've actually had a winner that has won two categories. So the winner that I'm announcing is for both the application and innovation categories. We had some discussion amongst the judges on how to manage the scoring, and decided that this submission really warranted winning both categories, given how the scoring fell and through some of our discussion. But without further ado, the winner for the application and innovation categories is HiFusk 2.0, a first step towards clinical translation, by the team at the Robotics Institute. And the presenter today will be Andrea Mariani.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Mariani. I'm from the Robotics Institute of Scuola Sant'Anna in Italy. Let me share with you my screen. Okay, so first of all, I want to say that we are very excited about this award, and we are very pleased and honored to have the opportunity to share with you today our work and our latest achievements. So to dive in our project, I would say I will let just me, or better, the past me, introducing the project by means of a short summary video. So good vision. With HiFusk 2.0, we move a first step towards the clinical translation of HiFusk. HiFusk, High-Intensity Focused Ultrasound Surgery based on KUKA robot, is a project developed by the Robotics Institute of Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna in Italy. Our team works in the field of minimally invasive surgery and targeted therapy, and has a deep experience in robotics and ultrasound. The project HiFusk originates from the KUKA Innovation Award 2020. HiFusk is a robot-assisted platform that combines robotics and focused ultrasound. Focused ultrasound allows to generate a localized disruptive effect without damaging the surrounding areas. This can be applied to the surgical domain, and it can revolutionize the treatment of several pathological conditions like cancer, since it is totally non-invasive, requiring no incision. Robotics enriches focused ultrasound surgery by introducing precision, repeatability, and accuracy. HiFusk 2.0 takes the patient in the center of the platform design by optimizing the safety measures available throughout the treatment. This translates into a constant monitoring of the interaction forces between the therapeutic device and the patient, as well as a quantitative evaluation of their acoustic coupling by real-time processing raw ultrasound data. HiFusk 2.0 takes also advantage of robotic control and machine learning to guarantee compensation of possible motions of the therapy target. While HiFusk was previously validated on phantoms and ex vivo animal tissue, a first in vivo experiment on pig was carried out using HiFusk 2.0. This experiment demonstrated the capabilities to perform in vivo tracking of moving anatomical targets, and to maintain proper coupling during the therapy, when no damages were produced at the coupling interface. HiFusk 2.0 successfully produced a lesion in correspondence of the target in the pig's liver. The open protocol for in vivo preclinical studies will enable further testing to take extra steps towards the clinical translation of HiFusk 2.0. Thanks for watching. So you probably got from the video that we are a team working on robotics and ultrasound. This is quite the roadmap of our story. So a story which is quite a long one in this field, started in 2010 and involving multiple research projects, national and international projects, moving from Microvast till the Futura and Futura 2020 projects, till the latest implementation of our platform based on a KUKA robotic arm, which is called HiFusk. With HiFusk 2.0, we focused on the first preclinical tests, preclinical trials, testing the HiFusk platform in an in vivo scenario. So again, HiFusk is basically the marriage of two technologies, robotics and focused ultrasound. This combination gives origin to a robot-assisted surgical platform that can address oncological diseases precisely, thanks to robotics, and non-invasively, thanks to focused ultrasound. We also take advantage of robotics to enable an intuitive and safe use of focused ultrasound for surgical applications. So the HIFUS platform is embedded with some safety measures that guarantee compensation in case of motions of the therapy target by exploiting an image-based tracking and the robot-assisted control. At the same time, the use of a sensitive robot like the KUKA one allows to constantly monitoring the interaction forces between the platform and the external environment. And these monitoring of the forces, of the interaction forces, combined with the processing of the raw ultrasound data, can also enable the verification of the coupling, the acoustic coupling between the therapeutic device and the patient throughout the treatment. That means the correct therapy delivery, the correct propagation of the focused ultrasound beam. So again, with HIFUS preliminary, HIFUS 2.0 preliminary animal trials allowed to assess this platform, the HIFUS platform, in its functionalities, the functionality that we have just seen in an in vivo scenarios. The first validation was meant to test our platform while performing a high-intensity focused ultrasound sonication on a pig's liver. Specifically, we meant to verify in this preliminary in vivo test the treatment safety. That means the capability to not damage the skins, the pig skin, and at the coupling interface, as well as to produce no damages to the surrounding, to the anatomical areas surrounding the therapy target. And we also wanted to, let's say, demonstrate the treatment efficacy, so the ability to produce a lesion in correspondence of our therapeutic target. A lesion that was smaller in terms of dimensions with respect to our, let's say, ex vivo setting tests, because of the, let's say, thickness of the pig's rind, that of course is thicker with respect to the human one our focused ultrasound transducer was designed for. Finally, we also showed during this experiment the capability of the HIFUS platform to perform tracking in an in vivo scenario on an, let's say, abdominal organ like the liver, so subjected to the motion due to the respiration of the animal. This was basically our story so far. We are now, let's say, looking for funding to, let's say, start up a company and move further steps towards, let's say, the clinical translation, the actual clinical translation of HIFUS. This is the very end of our talk today. Thanks again for the opportunity of sharing with you our project, and thank all of you for attending.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentations. Congratulations again to the awardees, and best of luck to all of you in the coming year in your work. And we look forward to your submissions for next year's event.
Thanks a lot.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rich. And then now on to our second competition, which we run this year for a second time after the very successful event last year. And it is a challenge on medical robotics for contagious diseases. And so in this context, I'd like to introduce Rob Richardson, my colleague, professor of robotics at the University of Leeds, who is also the chair of the UK Robotics and Autonomous Systems Network, which obviously co-runs these competitions with us. And he will be representing the awarding panel for this particular challenge. Rob, over to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'd like firstly to say well done to the other teams. Great prizes for the previous two prizes. So this is about the Medical Robotics for Contagious Diseases Challenge. And I think we've all thought about kind of robots to do things like disinfect things and keep us safe. But really, until the pandemic came about, none of us took it that seriously. None of us really gave a lot of research to it. So I think it's an amazing achievement for many teams over the last few years to be able to really accelerate the technology, to take this technology to a point where it's commercial in some cases, or at least pre-commercial. the challenges of these kind of robots is really difficult, because by definition, they are going to be amongst people. They'll be doing things that people don't want to do, but they'll be in an undefined environment, near people, around people. So really a very great, difficult robotic challenge to undertake. So a great pleasure to take part in the judging of these things. I was also very proud to be a winner last year, in fact. So I think I understand especially acutely how hard it is to do this. So I'd like to thank my other judges as well. So was myself. There was also Dan Ellison from Hamlyn, who also helped judge, as well as Ross Taylor from Johns Hopkins. So thanks for them for judging. We had some great, interesting judging experiences together. Okay, so we're going to announce the winners of 2 categories today. The first one is going to be on the application category, and for this we were looking for robots or systems that can be used easily. And I guess it comes down to being specifically designed to meet the application. We want to really get that application sorted out, get it done. So they are easy to be used. They can just be used in the field. So it wants to be something that actually does work, does do the real job. And I think also in particular is value for money. We want this to be the winner of this category to be something that actually would work financially, could be a product. That's what we're looking for. So again, well done to all the entries. I think they were all amazing. But the winner of this category to announce is Roomba from a team at the University of Pennsylvania. And to present this, we've got a presenter, Robert Pazlaski.
Thanks so much, Professor Richardson. My team and I are extremely excited and honored to be selected as this year's application winner. Let me share my screen real quick. I'm having some technical difficulties over here.
Here we were.
I have the video.
Are you able to see my screen?
Share it.
Sorry, what's that? Are you able to see my screen?
No.
Okay.
I have the video if you would like me to show it.
It looks like I'm going to be unable to play the video at the end. So would you mind sharing that after my presentation?
Sure.
Thank you so much for that.
But we can now see your screen, Robert.
Okay. So you can see my screen.
If you go full screen. We should be able to. Yeah, just swap over which screen you're presenting on, and I think we should be okay. Yeah, that's it.
Here, 1 second.
There we were, without a hitch until now. But I don't think any reasonable online event can close without an ICT-related glitch. I think it's just part of the package.
All right, is that looking fine now?
Nope.
No? Okay.
It was working fine just before you switched it off. We could see it. Here it is. Yeah, that's it. Fine.
Okay. Okay. And the screen's still fine?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Sorry for that little hiccup there. Okay, so I'm Rob Pazlaski, and I'm here today representing Team Roomba. So our team set out to reduce the enormous but often overlooked disease burden of several highly communicable diseases, and this includes the cold, the flu, and COVID-19. Just for some perspective, the United States has a population of 330 million, and each year there's an estimated 1 billion cases of the common cold. And this results in healthcare costs and economic losses exceeding 20 billion pounds and accounts for 40% of lost time from work in the US. The pathogens that cause these illnesses have been shown to live on surfaces for up to a week, and the CDC recommends disinfecting high-touch surfaces at least once a day. But manual cleaning is inconsistent, expensive, not highly scalable, and can put sanitation workers at risk. So in addition to spreading through surfaces, pathogens also spread easily through the air from talking, coughing, and sneezing. But current air disinfection methods include air changes through filtered ventilation systems, and this requires multiple changes per hour to be effective. It can also be very disruptive and expensive to upgrade infrastructure if you don't already have the system in place. So our solution is Roomba, the effective, autonomous, and inexpensive robot for smart disinfection. Roomba is designed to autonomously clean static rooms in the absence of people, prioritizing high-touch surfaces for effective cleaning. Its UV light remains on throughout the entire duration of cleaning, ensuring that it also disinfects the air and any auxiliary surfaces in the room. On the right, you can see our design mockup, and there are three main components. First, a UVC light source is used to disinfect. Second, the light is mounted on a vertical linear actuator, so it can extend above surfaces. And third, the robot's fitted with LiDAR sensor, so it can map its surroundings. It also features a depth camera that's used to perform two separate tasks. First, to detect and locate high-touch surfaces for targeted cleaning, and second, to also detect humans so the robot can shut off as a backup safety feature. So Roomba's operation begins in our mobile application, RoomVap, with several safety checks. In order to navigate its environment, Roomba leverages its onboard camera.
Your slides are not moving.
They're not moving?
No.
Is it working better now?
What we see is your team. That's it. Now, yes. Yes. Yeah. If you hide this little tab that says start with a big exclamation mark.
Okay. Sorry. Let me redo this here.
Having said that, you were presenting it so vividly, we could picture those slides, even though you were not seeing them. So it actually took a while before we realized there should be slides going with your presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Now it's working perfectly. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay. All right.
In the interest of time, I probably would just keep on where you were at. I think it's okay. That's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So in order to navigate Roomba's environment, it leverages an onboard camera and LiDAR sensors to perform stereo and LiDAR graph-based simultaneous localization and mapping, which results in a 3D map of its environment. And while Roomba navigates through the room to sanitize and construct this map, it also detects high-touch surfaces. And this task is accomplished primarily through the use of a single-shot multi-box detector trained to identify numerous common high-touch surfaces, such as chairs, doors, railings, and tables. Given this map of its environment and list of high-touch surfaces, Roomba maintains a queue of target poses designed to maximize UVC exposure to high-touch surfaces it has identified within the room. Our testing and validation has shown that Roomba's minimum UVC delivery exceeds the dosage necessary to inactivate common pathogens, including adenovirus, influenza, E. coli, and coronavirus. Here are key specifications based on the needs identified through stakeholder interviews. Our robot will be used to disinfect a wide variety of non-clinical spaces, such as classrooms and offices. So it's small enough to fit through aisles, is low cost, and is easy to use. Through our interviews, we also learned that full autonomy is highly desired. So we met this need and prioritized sanitizing surfaces most likely to spread disease. Stakeholders also wanted an interface where they could easily access the robot's cleaning data. So we designed an app that allows access to cleaning records and battery life. Finally, many expressed a need for a method of disinfection that safely provided consistent results. So our robot kills 99.9% of pathogens every time, shuts off upon detecting people. Roomba is not the only existing disinfection robot. This graph on the right shows the level of autonomy and price comparison for Roomba's competitors. They're quite expensive, often ranging from 25 to 90,000 pounds. Most are stationary, but even when they're mobile, they require a person to control their movements. Our robot is small, agile, autonomous, inexpensive, and fills this unmet space. With Roomba, schools and offices will be able to quickly and cost-effectively disinfect their spaces, keeping their students and employees healthy. This also has downstream advantages such as fewer students missing class or companies saving money on sick leave. And before moving on to our submission video, I'd like to quickly thank Subhranshu, Vera, Patterson, Seville, Dr. DePaulo, Dr. Meany, and the Stevenson Foundation Biomakerspace for all their support. And all of us at Team Roomba would also like to extend our thanks to the organizers of the symposium, as well as the selection committee for the award. So thank you very much. And Marion, if you wouldn't mind sharing the video here, because my audio seems to not be working.
Hi, we're Roomba, the effective, autonomous, and inexpensive smart disinfection robot. Our device autonomously maps and navigates an environment while disinfecting the air and surfaces with a UVC light. As the device moves around the room, the UV lamp remains on and the time spent near objects varies based on whether it is high touch or not. Our device is also equipped with a RoomVap. This video is a screen recording as I navigate through the app. First, I create an account. Then, from the home page, I can access cleaning records and the data interface. Finally, I can operate the Roomba, as you can see in this next video. The robot is autonomously moving towards the table as its target. In the bottom left corner, you can see what our robot is seeing through our camera. Now let's take a look at each component alone. Here's a video of our robot performing simultaneous localization and mapping. As the robot navigates through the room, it builds the initial 2D map and its path is recorded. And this is an example of the final 3D map our LiDAR camera constructed. Roomba was able to generate an accurate 3D map of any room that it was operating in. The left picture is an angled view of the room, while the right picture is the top-down view. The neon blue line shows the robot's path to generate the map. Our robot categorizes surfaces as high-touch or not via its onboard camera and object categorization algorithm. This allows our robot to prioritize high-touch surfaces and spend more time disinfecting them. As a safety mechanism, our device turns off when it detects a human. These videos show the camera seeing a high-touch surface or a person and our algorithm labeling them as such in 2 different rooms with different layouts and lighting conditions. It also provides depth measurements in real time. Finally, here's a video of our robot in action with all the components working together. You can see Roomba moving towards the table and chairs. The 2 screens on the right show what Roomba is seeing through its onboard sensors. Here you can see our robot turning to avoid obstacles in its path. You can also see our robot moving towards the table and chair as its next target. Thank you for watching the Roomba demo.
Excellent, great, thanks. So again, well done for winning and great work, and also well done for coping with the technical difficulties of the presentation. Great job. Okay, so we'll now go on to the next award in the same category. So this is the design category. So for this, we were looking for projects that really, I guess, that had the kind of the finished sort of real deal. So that they were attracted lots of care and attention to detail, effort into design, usability, and the operating environment. These were the criteria, and I'm delighted to announce that the winner of this were Protect, the team from the Technical University of Munich. So well done. And to present today is Jonas Fruchtman, sorry. So over to you. So we can't hear you, sorry.
Okay, so hopefully now it's working.
That's great, yeah, thank you.
Okay, but we have to switch for the video, right? Okay, so it's a huge honor for us to receive this award. I would like to thank the whole selection committee as well as the sponsors. And I think we start with the video.
Yeah, so we hear the audio of, I think, the live feed, but not the audio of the video.
So unfortunately, the audio is not working, but it's mostly sound, and you see this little text which provides all the necessary information, and I will go into depth in my presentation afterwards.
Warte mal.
Okay, so you can hear me again? Just give me a quick feedback, please.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, great. So now I would like to give you a few more insights into our project and the underlying concept. We've all seen the huge impact of the corona pandemic on our healthcare systems. Now, apart from shortages such as for personal protective equipment, a major bottleneck arose due to a lack of health and care workers who got infected while sometimes unknowingly working with infectious patients. Also, in fear of getting infected, some patients even avoided to see the doctor's office at all, or they also started to use telemedical services. Now, in most other disciplines, such as surgery, for example, we have all seen that robotics has come a long way. But meanwhile, in those telemedical services, they are rather teleconsultation without the possibility for professional examination. So in order to overcome all these challenges, we've developed a contactless examination system using the surgeoneering approach. And that's basically the close collaboration between engineers and surgeons, in this case, surgeons trained in the fields of robotic surgery. Now, therefore, the MITI research group, we teamed up with Franca Emica and the Munich School of Robotics and Machine Intelligence. Franca Emica is a Munich-based, fastly growing robotics company that developed the Franca Emica Panda cobot. And the Munich School of Robotics and Machine Intelligence is part of the Technical University of Munich and supported the project with an intuitive robotic control system. We, the MITI research group, we are based here in the Klinikum Rechts der Isar, are part of the Department of Surgery and part of the Technical University as well. As you have already seen in the video, even without the sound, the patient enters the examination cabin and is guided by the physician throughout the whole process. And the system relies on a lead robot that is placed at the physician's remote desk. And all executed movements are then transferred to a follower robot that interacts with the patient directly. The system provides a force feedback in both directions, and all captured diagnostic parameters are directly available to the doctor throughout the newly developed user interface. As already shown, the system can not only check the vital signs, but it also allows for a robotic swab, an oral inspection, an auscultation, percussion, or even a palpation of the patient's abdomen. So using robotics really allowed us to deal with the patient's individual anatomy and also to perform examinations that can't be executed by the patients themselves. So let's say, for example, an auscultation on the patient's back. Since we applied for the challenge, we were also able to conduct a clinical study, recruiting 20 volunteers from our hospital's emergency room. And the feedback was really great. As you can see on the chart here, showing some preliminary data, the patients had hardly any problems using the system and felt comfortable as well. As the swab is the most invasive procedure of all performed examinations, patients felt a bit more unsecure using the robot. However, the high level of comfort ultimately proved that a robotic swab is not an unpleasant experience at all. Also, crucial for the positive results was that patients were able to touch the robot, to move it, and feel the applied forces by the physician and by the patients themselves. And yeah, this interaction previously to the first examination increased their feeling of safety and comfort. So, for example, we had one patient who was hearing impaired, and this patient even preferred our system over the emergency room, as the patient was not allowed, not necessary to wear a facial mask, and therefore was able to lip read. So to sum things up, we have developed a telemedical diagnostic framework that allows for modular robot-based contactless examination of potentially infectious patients. And in the near future, we are looking forward to expand our system with further modules and to test the system with increased distance between the patient and the physician, for example, to use it in rural areas. So thank you once again for the award and greetings from our whole team. Bye.
Great, fantastic, thank you. Yeah, so I guess to both teams, very worthy winners. So congratulations again, and I really look forward to seeing your developments in the future, making a real difference in the real world. Fantastic. Thank you.
A lot. Wonderful. Thank you, Rob. And thank you to all the participants. And of course, congratulations to the winners. Now, last but not least, as you will know, over the course of the last 3 months, we also ran a virtual poster competition, and all 25 entries we received. Ooh, can you hear me? Yes, sorry. And all 25 posters we received are available on the Hamlyn Symposium.org website. These were judged by on merit by an awarding panel composed of Dr. Benny Lowe, Dr. Bettina Gennaro, and Dr. Alec Thompson here at Imperial College. And I'm delighted to announce the winner. And it is for the poster entitled Cobra Robot for Localized Cancer Treatment and Diagnosis under Real-Time MRI, which was a team effort from representative from the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and the United Kingdom. And of course, they were also part of the organizing committee of a workshop, the details of which are also on the Hamlyn Symposium website, and a video recording of the workshop itself is available on the YouTube channel. Here to receive the award, I am delighted to introduce Sipaldeep Singh, who will share with us a short summary of their work before receiving the award. Thank you very much. If you would like to share your screen. Wonderful.
Greetings to all. I'm Sipaldeep Singh Taliwal, Design and Development Engineer from University of Lille. And we would like to thank the jury members and providing an opportunity to present our COBRA project. From the video, you can see that we are targeting the minimal invasive approach with the intraoperative in-bore prostate brachytherapy. We have developed a MR conditional robot equipped with the absolute and incremental encoders. Our objective is to operate patient in-bore and without moving the patient outside to verify the needle tip verifications for repetitive insertions. Our COBRA robot is a 5 degree of freedom robot, and it is capable of performing oblique as well as straight needle insertions. It is not limited with the straight needle insertions. Our partner TU Delft had developed a steerable needle design, which can be used for reducing the number of punches and reducing the number of needle trajectory algorithm developed by University of Portsmouth to design a trajectory plan so that needle tip can be opted with that trajectory plan, helping the inverse kinematic model of the robot. Here you are able to see the bio-inspired prostate phantom. It is the proof of concept we developed for adaptive brachytherapy under intraoperative MR. It is our preliminary tests, and the phantom is deformable, and we can use this phantom for a simulator for robot to help the practitioners and surgeons to use the robot and to make a double function as a teleoperative surgery as well as the autonomous robotized surgery. And we would like to thank from our team for this opportunity to present our project on Hamlyn Symposium. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sipaldeep, and congratulations once again. And of course, to all our awardees, the operational team will be in touch with further particulars since we are in a remote setting and of course, spread around the world. So that's it. That's the end of our challenges, the end of our ceremony. And all it is left for me to do is to thank a number of people and organizations for their contribution to the symposium program. First of all, I'd like to take a moment to thank Marianne and her team. Specifically, Marianne Knight is the Director of Operation of the Hamlyn Center. And of course, she's puppet mastered the 3-month program that has been quite a mammoth effort altogether because of the unusual setup of this conference program layout. And with her, I'd also like to thank my co-chair, Professor Lord Ara Darzi, for supporting every aspect of this process from the very start. I'd like to take a moment to also thank the sponsor, and of course, a special welcome to the Hamlyn Trust and the Wellcome, who co-supported the running costs and the symposium program. I'd like to thank Paolo Dario and the editorial board of TMRB, who is hosting the special issue of our Hamlyn Symposium journal section, which will be launched in November of this year with a number of successful papers which are currently going under peer review. I'd like to especially thank our community, especially our keynote speakers and our workshop organizers, which collectively have enabled us to put together an online library of content, which is available to all of our community, which I am pretty sure will be valuable to us for years to come. And in fact, elements of this will probably make it through into our next year's program. A special thank you also to the awarding panel, Rob, Rich, and their colleagues. And of course, a thank you to the UKRAS network, which co-supported part of the challenges in the symposium. And finally, again, a big thank you to our community for remaining engaged with our program, which although a 3-month-long program has actually kept everybody interested as the numbers suggest. Now, very quickly, next year's preparations have already started, and we have every intention for the Hamlyn Symposium to return as a physical event in June of 2022, details to follow. But of course, we have learned a great deal from having to run the entire program online, and I can already confirm now that the hamlynsymposium.org website with all its interactive content will remain a facility that we're going to use in 2022. And of course, there are elements of the online value proposition that have worked incredibly well in broadening the reach of the Hamlyn Symposium and giving a voice to those who cannot usually make it all the way to London in June of any given year. And so I imagine that in 2022, we'll have a little bit of a mixed format. So we'll have a physical event, but obviously enriched by some online content. With that, I think we have run out of time. And in fact, we are pretty much bang on target for this award ceremony and closing ceremony. I'd like to thank everybody once again for taking the time to be with us, and remind everybody that for those of your colleagues who have not been here live, they will be able to see a recording of this closing ceremony on our YouTube channel in the next couple of days. Thank you to our keynote speakers. Thank you to all, and have a beautiful rest of the day. Thank you.